Welcome to We Question and Learn. This is Tom Pies. We're celebrating our 19th year on the air here at WQLN FM 91.3, WQLN NPR1. And almost as long as this program has been on the air, historically, my guest today, his story goes back about 19 years. Dr. Gerald Clark, am I right?
Yes, it'll be 20 years in August, which is so hard to believe.
I was thinking it was only a decade ago. How time flies, right?
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Sure has.
Well, let's explain to the audience. First of all, Dr. Clark is at Gannon University, and your title there, if I could ask?
Associate Professor, Criminal Justice, and I've been here since I retired from the FBI.
And how long ago was that?
Yeah, 2011. It's so hard to believe that I'll be here at Gannon all those years now already, too. Those have flown, but I really enjoy what I do here, so it'll be hard for them to have me to leave here, that's for sure.
Well, let's go right to your publications. That's probably
Sure.
an easy way to step up the conversation. The Pizza Bomber, that's the title of the book. The Untold
Yes.
Story of America's Most Shocking Bank Robbery. You know, I just heard a reference to it on a national network the other day, which provoked me to call you. And that's published by Penguin Random House. And my gosh, did they ever make a movie out of that yet? Forgive me for not knowing.
No, they have not. There were some shows that have been copied, sort of the storyline.
Yes.
But we're currently have the book optioned to be heading down that way for a scripted limited series. So we're very excited about that.
Well, this is a sad part of Erie history, but an important part. These types of cases, and I'm going to depend on your expertise, they're not that common. This became a nationally known event. Am I right?
Tom, this thing just went places that I would have never imagined. National, international. It's very popular overseas just because of really two things I think that captured the imagination and fascination of people. Number one, it had really never happened before that an individual walked into a bank wearing a live device that detonates during the course of the robbery, resulting in their death. And that had never happened. And then the second thing, and I think even more than that, the first thing is the fact that it was captured on film. And so it's been able to be seen on the internet all over the world and in various versions. And I think the combination of those just took it to places that I would have never imagined on that day.
So let's talk about the story. We're going to go back to August 28th, 2003. And the main player here is a fellow by the name of Brian Wells.
Yes, that's correct. On that day, Mr. Wells entered the PNC Bank here in Erie and approached the teller counter, handed a note saying this is a robbery and I need $250,000 and I have a bomb. And so that's how the whole thing triggered from that moment on.
That's too scary. What typically, I guess maybe some things are confidential, but that had to have been a most stressful moment for all the employees, and I'm sure there's a procedure and things. So he goes in and does this. He makes the threat. What happens subsequent?
So subsequent, what also made this robbery a little different than some of the others that I've worked over the years was that there were customers in the bank that actually started calling 911 while the bank was even being robbed. And so they were providing almost like a play-by-play as, hey, he's walking out the door, he's entering his car, he's driving out of the lot. And so therefore, the Pennsylvania State Police, who did an amazing response to the robbery, were immediately able to, spot him and do a felony car stop and place him under arrest just a few hundred yards from where the bank was. And then that's when I arrive on scene. So it was a very quick response. And again, that's credit to the customers in the bank.
Let's just jump forward for a second to today. You're a professor, but you're an author. And not only are you the author of the book, The Pizza Bomber, The Untold Story of America's Most Shocking Bank Robbery, but you have several other books that you've written with a partner. Am I right?
Sure, that's absolutely correct, Tom. And I've been very fortunate that after we wrote the first book, and by we, I mean Ed Palatella and myself. And Ed is a really renowned writer for the Erie Times News, investigative reporter. He's been there forever. And together we worked on the Pizza Bomber book. Well, after that book came such a success, we actually had a publisher come to us asking for a 3-book series on other cases that I had done or other things that we could write on. So it was sort of a neat process for us because we were able to then write Mania and Marjorie Deal Armstrong inside the mind of a female serial killer, because Marjorie was such a unique character. So she became our second book. So the first book is really about the investigation of the pizza bomber case. The second book is more about Marjorie Deal Armstrong specifically and the uniqueness that she had as being classified as a female serial killer. And then they asked for a book on bank robberies in general because they seem to fascinate public, just the fact that someone could walk into a bank and rob it. So we wrote a history of heists, and that was a really, really also popular book, Bank Robbery in America. And we start from the very first bank robbery in Philadelphia all the way to some of the modern ones and how bank robberies have changed over the years. And then our last book is called On the Lam, and it's a history of hunting fugitives in America, because I was, while I was with the FBI, I spent 6 years on a violent crime fugitive task force where all I did every day was work violent crime. So kidnapping, bank robberies, fugitives, and the fascination again with the public for people who are on the run. And it really has been another one of those successful projects that we were able to get.
Memories of Bonnie and Clyde to some degree, that kind of excitement, would you say?
Oh, it's truly the fact that people get out there on the run and the public's view of what's going on and their ability to stay away. And from the movie The Fugitive that we mentioned in the book with Harrison Ford, and how he's trying to get away from Tommy Lee Jones, and you almost start rooting for the fugitive to they, especially ones that you feel were innocently charged for some reason, but usually that's not the case. Usually it's the fact that they had done wrong. And now we're looking for them. So the things that people do to not be captured have really just blown me away in my career. And doing that long enough, I got to see a lot of that.
Well, you mentioned the most recent movie. I confess, I remember the television program. So
there you go. Yeah, that's
going way back. But let's talk about you for a second. Your career, you were a college student, and I'm thinking, where did you go to school? I'm looking here. I can't find it.
Yeah, so I'm from Erie originally, which is great. I just love Erie and always have. And so while I went away to school I was in New York City at John Jay College of Criminal Justice, which was really one of the top level criminal justice schools in the country at the time.
Yes.
It still is, but they had a master's degree in forensic psychology, and that was so rare at the time because it was such a new burgeoning field. And so I was able to go there and receive a master's degree in forensic psychology. And I just love the fascinating view of, not what people do, but why they do it. So that always sort of came into my play as far as psychology of human behavior and criminal behavior. So,
and you were a bit ahead of your time, come to think of it.
At the time you start thinking in 1983,
yes,
there just wasn't anybody really looking at that to find that program. And then to be accepted into it, I was just so proud and happy and fortunate. So I was able to get that degree. And then that opened a lot of doors. So federally, I started applying to every federal agency I could. And NCIS was the first one that called.
Here we go again, right? You're ahead of your time again.
So now we're moving to Philadelphia. And, I worked as a special agent with NCIS down in Philadelphia, doing all sorts of different protective service details, and was overseas guarding people that we had threats on from different countries. And so I really enjoyed that time. And then about, maybe a year and a half into that, I get a call from DEA, which is the Department of Justice. And I thought, wow, Drug Enforcement Administration, that's more along the lines of where I'm heading, which was my ultimate goal of the FBI. But I then took a job with DEA and went back to the academy again down in Quantico, and was assigned to the Cleveland office of the FBI, Cleveland, Ohio. So I love 6 years of fighting some of the highest level drug traffickers in Cleveland, Ohio. And again, that job took me everywhere, again, overseas, because that's where, our sources of supply are. And then finally, after 6 years into that, the FBI finally gave me the call and said, hey, we're ready. So back down to the academy again for my third federal law enforcement training center. I never would recommend that to anybody. And then I was assigned the Cincinnati division of the FBI in the Dayton RA. And then I spent 6 years there, like I said, on a fugitive violent crime task force, hunting some of the most notorious violent felons in the area and around the country. So I got lucky enough then in the FBI, if you get fortunate to get transferred to your OP, it's called an Office of Preference. You can go to a place that you are looking for if they have a need. And I got back to the Pittsburgh division in the Erie RA. And I thought, oh my God, I just hit the lottery. I got back home and I'm in Erie, and then was here only about a half a year or more. No, I guess it was a year and a half. And that's when August 28, 2003 hit. So changed my life forever.
And with all that, I'm surprised the government still isn't seeking you out to do special cases. I'm fantasizing a television program here. Forgive me, but I'm trying how did you manage all that excitement? You must be a man of great patience. The stress must be overwhelming, in my mind, anyway.
Our law enforcement officers, Tom, are the heroes, and I'm talking first responders in general.
Yes.
With firefighters and EMTs and our emergency room medical staffs and those, police agents, all the people that really run to trouble. And we never seem to understand that until we need them. And when you need them and you call them, they're coming. And so I have the utmost respect for anybody who's done this job, because it is stressful and it is, hard on you physically, mentally, and emotionally. And if you don't have the right support and ability for structure outside of the job, it can really wear you down. So for all my fellow first responders out there, I just give you a hats off and my absolute honor and respect.
I think we all support that more than 100%. I think sometimes people don't realize how close you are. Boy, that was not a good statement. How dangerous your lifestyle is. It's beyond writing about, I'm sure, because you can describe it, but the daily stress and the things you went through are, thank you for being there.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity just to even talk about it. It's almost cathartic for me to talk about, because when I think of how many doors, I've been through, whether that was on drug cases or fugitive arrests. And I think our arrest numbers in Dayton, Ohio were like 2,000 violent felons in 6 years. And that's a lot of people that I feel like we made a small dent in keeping society safe. And again, it's not about arresting everybody and locking up the people and throwing away the key. It's not about that. It's about people who have had opportunity to make change and don't, and they're just a risk and a danger to our citizens and society. And unfortunately, those people exist, and we need to separate them from us.
Well, that's your bachelor's of art psychology sneaking into the conversation here where you started. But what provoked you, and I think you did mention it to some degree, why forensic psychology? What provoked you to be interested in that topic? I sort of mentioned a little bit about it, but to get a little deeper into it, it's all about what makes people tick. And for me, because if you think about this, if somebody wanted to hurt somebody or kill somebody, God forbid, you could do 10 different things, certainly shoot and stab and drown and poison and suffocate or whatever it is you chose as your method. But my thought process is, why do you want that person dead? And so that's where the psychology of the whole thing becomes so fascinating to me, because I want to figure out what makes people do what they do. And if you don't have a background in that, I think you're missing a piece as an investigator that will really help you throughout your career. And that's why I teach again in a course called Investigative Concepts and an Intro to Forensic Psychology. And I try to tell students, you have to know a little bit about what your suspect is thinking.
because it'll help you in the interview, it'll help you in the interrogation, and it'll certainly help you put your case together. So I just think it's vitally important to have that blend when you're in this field.
I so respect that statement you made. You're really looking for the why, and that could go back to the person's upbringing, their environment. I'm not going to teach your course. Talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, no, there's so many developmental factors that get involved. There's a lot of biology. So do we bring some sort of gene or trait with us, like you might for alcoholism or some other thing that you have addiction? Is there a cognitive issue, where there's something going on mentally? Is there some social issue? So all those little contributing factors I talk about in class, making up a stew of what drives us into criminality. And it's very, very, very interesting. If you take that course, you can see all the different potential reasons. Now, some people who have all those factors never become criminal. And you say, well, how does that happen?
Yeah.
That, even in twin studies, it's so fascinating that you could have two twins or a set of twins from a family, and one does something and one doesn't. And you figure, boy, they both had almost the exact same situation in development. So it's a unique thing. If you ever get the book, it's called The Criminal Personality. And it's by Yockelson and Samenow, and they just say, you know what? If you boil down all the reasons, it might be as simple as, hey, they just get something out of it and they like it, and they boil it down pretty simplistic in some ways, but very, very interesting too.
You may not be able to say, but does the government come on occasion, i.e. give you a phone call and say, Dr. Clark, Jerry, what's your thoughts on this? Is this something that keeps coming back into your life?
I definitely reach out and talk to a lot of my FBI colleagues who are still active. And while I cannot, know some of the inside information anymore, which I would love to do, but have their rules, I do offer advice and certainly give and provide some insight as to what I think might be helpful. And again, sometimes they find that very helpful. And so it benefits me because I love trying to figure out things. The best thing at time I do in class, I say, you know what an investigator is? An investigator does an investigation on a case. And it's almost like taking a big jigsaw puzzle and like a 10,000 piece puzzle and throwing it out on the table. And what do we do first? I say we always do the edges, right? Because we know they're flat. And then we look at the box and we see what, well, there's red here, there's a river here, there's blue, and that's how you put your puzzle together. I said an investigation is like throwing that puzzle out onto all those pieces out, having no edges, having no box to look at, and having some pieces missing. And I said, think about the challenges that provides.
And a terrible timeline sometimes to catch up at what you're doing.
Yes, that throws another thing in the mix. So, it always it makes it very challenging when you never know exactly what happens.
So that's the course you teach at Gannon University. How long have you been doing that?
So I've been here since 2011, and like I said, several times I say, because I have a business now called Fisher Security, an unarmed security guard service, and it grew so much in Erie here and in Pittsburgh now I am, that I thought of going, and just doing it full time. But I instead brought my son, Michael Clark, into the business, and he now manages my business because I just don't want to leave Gannon. I just love everything about teaching new students and teaching investigators of the future to go out and become, just the most solid, integrity-based, officer that they can become.
If you see some guy sitting in the back row, that's me. I'm auditing the class. And I'm sure even one session would be fascinating because you have a different perspective relative to other folks I've talked to about your field. Going back to the books, you have a partner. You mentioned his name, Ed Palatella.
Yes.
How did you two fellas get together on that wonderful project, these great books?
Yeah, that's a great question. And Ed Palatella, like I said, is still at the Erie Times News, and it's been there for so long. He's a master's in journalism from Stanford. I mean,
Yeah.
this is a very, very bright guy. And
Yeah, absolutely.
Ed would do his job as an investigative reporter, and I was the acting supervisor of the Erie FBI office. And so our paths would cross on different cases, including the pizza bomber, all during the time I was there, because he was trying to get information, and I was obviously keeping that information close to my case because we couldn't let that out, but at the same time utilizing the news to help us in the best ways that they could. And we just developed this respect and working relationship with each other that I think was one of the really most prideful things I had coming out of there, because I felt I could trust that Ed would always do the right thing and always try to help. He still had his interests in what he was trying to do, but he always respected whatever I was trying to do on my end to keep the integrity of the case. So after I retired, Ed and I got together and said, what a crazy case. And he's saying, let me just start interviewing you and let me see what we can come up with, because I think there's something here that people would love to hear about. And I did the book for two reasons. One, I think it helps investigators who may have a similar case to that. Mm-hmm. And number two, I wanted the true story told, because a lot of times the truth gets mixed up in multiple versions. And so I just said, if I could do those two things, help investigators and get the truth out there, that I would cooperate. And that's where we started.
So as you and Ed have bonded together, that's 4 books now? 1, 2,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I got to tell you, if I could, all 4 books right now are optioned by different movie production companies.
Is that right?
All 4 of them.
Wow.
At one point, it was only the Pizza Bomber, but now another 2 companies have come forward and optioned Heist and On the Lam for different series that they're working on. So I'm cooperating with all 4 of those right now as we speak.
I'm being a bit facetious, but be careful. You'll be on the road doing tours and promote, or maybe you have done that already. How has your life changed because of the book?
My life changed. And again, the first thing I need to say is, 3 people lost their lives in that Pizza Bomber case. And so I'll never forget the families and what they went through and all the loss that went with that. And so their lives changed far worse than mine. But my life changed in many ways too, because of the rigor and stress that went with trying to solve a major case. And it took a huge team of people, not just myself. I obviously get all the credit sometimes for it, but there were a lot of people from PSP, from Erie Police Bomb Squad, from Erie Police Regular, the U.S. Attorney's Office, the District Attorney's Office, the ATF, Jason Wick, oh my gosh, Special Agent Jason Wick, my partner, and again, all the PSP officers that did such an amazing job with collecting evidence. And so it changed everything I do. I speak all over the country about the case to investigators. I just was in Delaware. I'm all over, because investigators want to know, what's the good, what's the bad, what's the ugly of any major case. And there are all of those, believe me. And I try to help investigators if they ever come across anything similar, how I challenged and worked with those challenges.
So not only are you an adjunct professor at Gannon University, you're an on-the-road professor, so to speak. And it just dawned on me as you said that of course your former workmates would indeed call you on occasion, since you had lived through a most difficult time, and ask you pertinent questions.
Yes, absolutely. No, we in this field, we try to help each other, and a lot of times that gets lost again. We're people don't see that, and maybe that's the way that investigations run. They're so quiet, but a lot of times there is conversation between past, former, current, just trying to help in any way they can, because we're all trying to do the right thing and figure out what happened and put that puzzle that I said, that big jigsaw, back together. And again, beyond a reasonable doubt is a very high burden to
Yes.
charge somebody with, and it should be.
Yeah.
We don't want innocent people in jail. We absolutely don't. So everything has to be done perfectly so that there's that bar that's satisfied when you do go to court.
Sometimes you see a preponderance of these types of scenarios in television programs. I'm not sure. Am I getting good information? Are the producers besides the thrill and some of the things that you care not to see on TV, and of course I'm prejudiced in that area, as you know, but but briefly, is this a good portrayal, or are they not helping us? Are they helping us, or are they tainting your good work?
Yeah, I think it sometimes can taint good work. And there's something called the CSI effect.
Yes.
Where now in trial, jurors expect, DNA evidence. They expect the highest level gold standard of evidence.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not always you might have circumstantial evidence. You might have other evidence that doesn't reach the DNA level, but it's still significantly strong coupled all together. So it does make it difficult for investigators because it makes it look like they can do things very quickly. And I mean, look in Idaho, I've been following that case so much, I just can't get enough information to know,
Mm-hmm.
to speak to it intelligently. But I got to say, the expectation now is so high. We want this solved, today. And that's a lot of data and a lot of evidence and a lot of analysts going through a ton of information to put that together.
Not something you can write into a 60-minute television program. You may be talking 10, 20 years even
you
to
may
get all the
talk a
data.
little bit.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
Those are tough to put together.
They are. As you are teaching, a successful author, what do you see accomplishing, say, in the next 5 or 10 years, or even the next couple of years? What are your plans?
I want to continue to watch Fisher Security grow with my son. It's so great to work with my son together. He was a finance major and was a successful financial planner, and left that position to come help his old decrepit dad,
dear old
keep
dad.
a business running. And so, no, I'm just so fortunate to have him. And so I love watching that grow.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, like I said, just putting out students that'll come back to me and say, hey, I just got hired by DEA and I'm down at the border. And I think, oh my God, I'm living through you now. It's almost reversed where I'm teaching these young minds to go out and do good things. And now when they come back to tell me what they're doing, I just get the biggest thrill out of that. So I hope to be doing that for the next several years.
Another book coming, maybe?
We are definitely in conversation about another book, and so we're very excited about that. So that would be number 5, and we're hoping very soon to have information regarding, the production of these 4 that we have into something. So I can't announce anything yet, but I know there's good things coming.
Dr. Clark, Jerry Clark, what a pleasure speaking with you today. It's been a 20-year reunion.
Sure has, Tom.
Oh, where did the time go?
Quick 20 years.
Yeah, and it sneaks by us, but I hope that maybe we can catch you over the summer of 2023, and or at least when you're releasing your next book, and talk a little bit more about just America in general. I think that would be fascinating to hear your opinion on why we are where we are, if you wouldn't mind coming back again.
I'd have a lot to say about that, Tom, so I'd love to be back.
There's our program. I'm glad you committed. We'll figure that out over the summer.
You bet.
Gerald Clark, Dr. Clark, thank you for your on-air visit here with WQLN and We Question and Learn, and we're looking forward to speaking with you again.
I look forward to it. Thanks so much, Tom.
Welcome to We Question and Learn. This is Tom Pies. We're celebrating our 19th year here on the air at WQLN NPR. We're on about a dozen podcast venues to date, and we always strive to have the most interesting guests we can. And I found an old friend who was always good for good conversation and now for good education, Jonathan De Silva, who's the new director of Penn State Law's Intellectual Property Clinic. But Jonathan, welcome, first of all.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Tom.
Hey,
It's
good to hear.
see you again.
Hey, let's go back to a few years back. You were working for a major law firm, but you went off on your own a bunch of years ago, and you created a firm. What's the name of that firm that you created?
MMI, Intellectual Property. And that is a solo practice doing intellectual property work right here in Erie, PA.
And right about now, in 2023, as of today, the date of this broadcast, the world has changed dramatically. And I'm preaching to the choir, I'm sure, but relative to intellectual property, especially with these big television programs trying to tout people becoming entrepreneurs, et cetera.
Right.
You would be busier than ever relative to that field, I'm guessing.
You would think, but it's a bit different. I mean, one of the things that I strive to do in my practice is, basically help people as much as I can. A lot of people think they understand what intellectual property is and how it can serve and help them, but a lot of them come with misapprehensions or misunderstandings that I usually have to redirect them. And part of the problem with people trying to be engineers and entrepreneurs and wanting to be entrepreneurs is a lack of access to funding. A lot of the stories that the mythology of entrepreneurship is based on is things that have happened in the 80s and 90s, with people in their garages coming up with great ideas.
And a couple of the largest corporations in Erie decades ago started that way. Yeah, that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Of the Erieses of the world. Mm-hmm. But even Eries are the ones that happened in the Erie area were prior to the mega billion-dollar companies like Apple and Google that literally came out of people's garages. But the difference between what happened in the Erie region and what happened in Silicon Valley is very stark. But in every instance, what those entrepreneurs had that made them billionaires was access to capital. Apple CEO
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs.
Mm-hmm.
He was the son of an immigrant, yes, but his mother had a lot of money to hand to him when he needed it. Same thing with oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his name now.
It's okay, but out of the three or four, even the Amazon family, et cetera.
Amazon, all of them. Yeah, Elon Musk. He's son of a gem industry.
South Africa. That's where he's from, right?
Exactly. Yeah. All of those people that people look to started out with an advantage that 99.9% of us don't have.
Yeah. So
what that means for the rest of us is we have to work a lot harder to get even a tiny fraction of what the dream has been sold to us.
The seed capital has come from someplace else in their past, in their family, where with whom they've associated.
Correct.
This concept, I don't want to name a television program, but I get a little nervous when I watch that because it seems like it's not misleading. The advice is good, but that's not where the real big money, as you've described aptly, has come from, right?
That's right. So for most people, what it is developing an idea that just gets them to sustainability. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get rich off of these ideas. You're going to get, if you put in the hard work, you find some way to struggle to get the money along, you could break even.
Well, the famous Amos cookies I discovered not long ago. Forgive me for not having the correct dates, but he went bankrupt, or he lost most of his money. Forgive me if I shouldn't have said he went bankrupt, but literally had nothing. The last report that I had read.
Yeah, and that is most businesses who start up, they don't succeed, and within a year, half of businesses fail. Within 5 years, half of those that succeed the first year fail. And within 10 years, those are the ones that stick around. But all of that is a lot of very hard work, from conception to development to possible market acceptance. I mean, you can't predict whether or not an idea will succeed. I mean, look at, for example, the fidget spinners. Fidget spinners were invented in the 80s by this single mom, and she had a patent on it. And she couldn't sell a single one of them until her patent expired, and somebody else picked up the idea. And
yes. Speaking of a story similar to that from Pennsylvania itself, the Slinky story.
Yeah, exactly.
And if people don't know how that went, it went to nothing.
Right.
He destroyed the company, so to speak, and his wife rejuvenated it, which was, I guess, one of the few patents that actually resurrected itself from nothingness, from bankruptcy. Right. But let's go one step farther. You, as a professional intellectual property lawyer, what do you consider your responsibilities to someone who, say, first of all, let's interject one other fact here. Maybe they'll come to your office, but you also work at the university level. You're the new director of the Penn State Law's Intellectual Property Clinic.
Correct.
And so could you describe your responsibilities there, please?
Well, even before I joined the faculty at Penn State Law, one of my goals, or one of my charges, I think, or one of my obligations to my clients, is to help them succeed. And we are uniquely blessed in Pennsylvania and in the Erie region to have a very rare number of economic development agencies and groups and organizations that are around to actually help people develop ideas and take them to the marketplace. Between the small business development centers and the innovation beehive in the Erie region, which is a collaboration between Penn State, Behrend, Gannon University, Mercyhurst, and Edinburgh, and also, like, for example, Ben Franklin Technology Partners, and then the new development fund that's been launched as well by the chamber and such. A lot of people who come to me, who find me, don't know about that network that exists, and don't know the resources that are available to them. So one of the things that I do is match people up with those resources. So when I saw that Penn State Law had this intellectual property clinic option open, I thought that it would be something like what I already do, which is, connecting economic development to Penn State resources. I did not know when I applied for the position that it was a faculty position.
Oh, okay,
So,
okay.
I thought it was just, continue to do what I always do. I thought it was, the Penn State has 21 launch boxes throughout the state. Part of Penn State's mission as a land-grant university is the economic development of the state. And Penn State has refocused its land-grant mission from agriculture to entrepreneurship.
Beautiful.
It's understanding that, the people of the Commonwealth now, how can we impact their lives in the most possible positive way? So the Penn State launch boxes are kind of like what the Erie Technology Incubator is here. And the network of economic development agencies here are sort of mirrored in Penn State throughout the state.
Wonderful.
Penn State actually sees the Erie region as sort of a model of collaboration and innovation and development because of the way that the innovation hubs and districts have been formed here. And I had a small part to play in some of this back in the day. So when I got hired by Penn State, and I eventually realized that actually what they wanted me to do with the clinic was teach.
Yes.
It actually changed my focus of what I thought I was going to be doing with what I am doing. So for purposes of explanation, the Intellectual Property Clinic is an experiential learning opportunity for law students at Penn State Law. So it is basically the students take the clinic for credit, and my charge is to run that clinic. So I basically run that clinic like my law firm. I took the job at Penn State on the condition they keep my firm going. So they run side by side. The students basically, I treat them as associates in my law firm. And basically we have clients who come to the clinic, and the students are in charge of and responsible for client intake, arranging client meetings, and basically offering the entire suite of services that I would normally provide in my law firm. So it's patents, copyrights, trademarks, trade secrets.
So this is a reenactment, or I should say role-playing, so to speak.
Role play isn't the right word, but yeah.
A little more complicated than that.
A little more complicated because, they are, lawyers in training, and they have all the obligations of attorneys. And in that, they have to maintain confidentiality. They have to take their responsibilities as baby lawyers seriously.
Yes.
And there are many court precedences about student attorneys having the same or greater obligations than regular attorneys. Of course, all of the work that they provide is for free, so we don't charge for their time to do it. And basically, I supervise it, the work that they do. I don't do the work myself. I do some of the filings and the like, but essentially it is student work that gets done. So I make sure that they live up to a certain standard, but I don't do the work.
Now, let me ask you something. I didn't know this. I just learned it recently. Your degree, your master's degree, is in bioengineering from Cornell, and I have a family member that's into biotechnology. You seem to be sitting in the right place with the right degree in a real-world scenario in one of the biggest opportunities this country has. Am I close?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So from my perspective as a patent attorney, one of the things that I see that the only real reason that a patent attorney needs to specialize in a particular area is if they have a PhD in a particular area. The fact of the matter is, my clients who come to me, they aren't necessarily going to all come from one technology area. So I see my engineering degree as one of the advantages of a biotechnology or biomedical or biological engineering degree is that typically in engineering you have to learn some amount of physics, and most engineers will learn some chemistry, but it's all based on an engineering principle. A bioengineer has to learn biology, physics, and chemistry. So I have a broader base of understanding than most other engineers.
Right.
Because I have to learn biology.
And lawyers. Well, yeah, of course.
Well, lawyers in general, because you need a STEM degree to qualify to take the patent bar in the first place. You don't actually have to go to law school to be a patent agent.
Can we talk for a second? I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you just said a magic word, patent. I think most people I've talked to do not understand how that works. I know we're going to regress back to some very simple things here.
That's right.
You work with it every day. I've seen these things. I've read some medical patents because they're interesting. But what is a patent, and what does it really entitle you to?
So a patent is a legal document that describes an invention. It's a lot more complicated than just that. In essence, the heart of a patent is what's called claims, where the inventor identifies a list of inventions, or at least one invention that is the subject matter of the patent. And that's typically a bunch of sentences at the end of the patent. Then the patent itself, the document, supports that invention. So you spend a lot of time with figures and drawings and detailed description that describes how this invention operates, what the limits of the invention are, how it can be used, variations, et cetera, et cetera. It may actually, the description may actually have multiple inventions in there, but the claims at the end identify one of those inventions. And you could have multiple patents with the same description referring to different inventions in that description.
What I'm getting at is this is not as simple as what you see on television, i.e. the ads
Correct.
and the television programs.
Correct.
The first advice. Go ahead.
There is a minimum requirement for what you have to put in. As long as you have that minimum, yeah, sure, you could get a patent. But you've heard that story. All somebody has to do is change one minor thing and you get around the patent.
Right.
Yes, that is true if you have a badly written patent.
Oh.
You can very easily get a patent for something that's entirely worthless because you didn't spend the time and money to do it right.
Yes.
So what a patent gives you is not a right to do or make anything. It gives you the right to stop others from making, using, or selling an invention. So it's a negative right. So, for example, I could file a patent application on a slot machine, but that doesn't give me the right to put a slot machine on, in my church.
Right. Right. Yes.
Right. It would stop others from copying my slot machine idea and using it anywhere in the country.
Now let's elevate this to your everyday duties as assigned in your new career, so to speak. You're providing education, and technically you're providing advice to students. Are these students entrepreneurs? Are they in this class because they're thinking larger than just having a law degree in intellectual property?
Generally, they're all law students. Not all of them.
Yeah.
Because it's a part of the law school. Not all of them have the qualifications to be patent attorneys.
Okay.
We also do a lot of trademarks and copyrights, which don't require STEM degrees. So to the extent that those students can do that work, we'll assign it to them. But actually, a little bit of context for all of this. Who are our clients and where do we get them from?
Right.
The clinic is housed in the launch box located in Happy Valley, Pennsylvania, which is right outside State College, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So we're associated with with Penn State's main campus.
Mm-hmm.
Because of modern technology being what it is, we actually support all 19 launch boxes across the state, and we will take clients from anywhere across the state, and anyone that is a Penn State grad or has some connection that we can work on. The intention of the clinic is to help people who can't afford an attorney.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
It is not a substitute for someone who says, "Well, I don't want to pay an attorney. I'm just going to go here." Frankly,
well, you
if you can
measure
afford an
that.
attorney,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you can afford an attorney, you probably want to pay an attorney for this work.
Okay.
Because you're not paying, you're not getting the benefit of my supervision of the student's work, but it's still student work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an important distinction. I mean, I do have some of my clients, my own personal clients on MMI, who I have sent here, and who have come here without even knowing that I'm running the clinic.
That's okay.
But that's totally fine. And then I say, "Hey, it's me. And in every instance, it's like, I understand, because if it is a client that I know can afford my services, I will tell them that, and I will say, "Look, I understand that I am not doing the work they are, and I'm not putting aspersions on the students, but they are students."
Yes.
Which means that they're going to take a lot longer to do the same level of work that I would do. And they have schedule differences that I don't have. So, for example, right now, we're in the middle of winter break.
Yes. Yeah.
We're not open.
You're not open. Although you have a telephone and internet, so I'm sure you're not vacationing.
Oh, no, well, I mean, I'm open, like my law firm is open, but the clinic is not open. I'm getting new applicants to our clinic all the time. and we just send them a response saying, we'll get back to you in the spring. I mean, in January when the students come back.
Right.
That's, and over the summer, with a little bit of a break, I will have students to help as well, but it's not a full class.
Gotcha.
So, there are limitations to that. That said, the flip side of that is there are a lot of people who can't afford my services.
Right.
And this is a great way for them to get something. Usually, but the thing is, even in my normal practice, I don't charge my initial consult so my first hour of time is free.
Mm-hmm.
When people call into the clinic to become clients of the clinic, they have that same conversation with me through the students.
Mm-hmm.
So they are getting a lot of help and advice that they wouldn't have otherwise. 80% of people who call me my regular practice don't ever call me back because I've addressed their concerns or issues within that first hour and at least pointed them to what they need to do for next steps when they are ready to come to me for a patent or a trademark or a copyright or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
In the clinic, we have almost the same level of hits. Like 80% of the people, they have questions we can answer really quickly within that first meeting. The difference, of course, is that because they're not paying for the time of the students, the mathematics of whether or not they can afford to move forward with a trademark registration or a patent application change.
Mm-hmm.
So the things that I would say to somebody who come to me and say, well, here's what it would cost if I were to do this, are you sure you can afford this? Or if they come to the clinic, it's, well, here are the filing fees. Because you're not paying for our attorney time, this is all you have to pay for.
Yeah. Let's take a step back to, in the real world. I think people have a funny maybe misconception that I have this idea, I'm going to get a patent, I'm going to run down to the local tool and die shop, I'm going to make 1 million widgets or plastic components from my tool and die metal here. That's not what really happens, is it? You really need to show a need, and how do you do that?
So there's two problems. Mm-hmm. One is that there is a time within which you have to file for a patent application. Mm-hmm. So you have 1 year from the date of first sale, offer for sale, public use, or public disclosure of an invention within which to file a patent application.
So you're selling it before you patent it?
No. If you sell it, if you make a sale,
if you make a sale, okay.
You have 1 year from that date to file a patent application in the U.S.
Got it. Yeah.
But so you want to talk to a patent attorney before you make a disclosure, before you make a sale or offer for sale, because you could potentially lose your rights if you wait too long.
If it's a good idea.
Well, that's the other problem. The other problem is you file a patent application, you're not even guaranteed to get a patent. It's you still have to go through the process, and that takes years, like 2 to 5 years to get a patent, at a minimum. So if you think you've got a good idea, one, you need to talk to me or
a lawyer. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Or a patent attorney. You need to talk to a patent attorney.
Yeah.
Or somebody knows what they're doing.
Yes.
And figure out what steps you have to take in order to be able to protect yourself. And then you have to spend the time and money to figure out, one, if you can file a patent, two, file the patent, and at the same time develop the idea and make it marketable and sell it so you can pay for your patent attorney.
I've had friends, clients, and relatives work in the chemical industry. And it seems that's somewhat advantageous because everything happens right in the office. Of course, you don't own the patent subsequently.
Correct.
Or in the laboratory. You don't own the... So are most patents, with that in mind, generated by corporations, people who have huge companies with deep pockets? Is that how it
Well, not always.
Okay.
So it depends. I mean, yes, the IBMs and the Apples of the world, they file patents like nobody's business because that's what they do. Mm-hmm. For other corporations, it's a matter of strategic interest and intent, whether or not they have an R&D development department, or whether or not the improvements that they stumble across are intentional or accidental. This country used to have a lot more just, R&D for the sake of R&D, and we've gotten away from that as much. I think to our detriment, because there's a lot of things that have developed serendipitously. For example, like Velcro.
Yes, Velcro. Yeah.
All of those things that that just happened to stumble across. Even commercial microwave, right?
Right.
That was serendipitously during World War II. It's like, oh, hey, my chocolate bar in my pocket is melting. Why is that? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, we do a lot of that. That's how a lot of things come, but we don't do it with intention as much anymore. So, gone are the days where Edison, has Edison Labs where people are just paid to sit and think. There are a few small shops that will do that, but nowhere near what it used to be. So and that's not to say that we don't have the highest number still have the highest number of patent application filings of any other country, but that's mainly because of America's market, because of what that means. We have an increasing number of patent applications that come from inventors who are overseas, which is, again, also not a problem per se. But if we don't in this country have an intention to develop ideas and to foster that thinking, then we stand the risk of losing that advantage that brought us to where we are.
In the last couple of minutes here, this is going to be a tough question. Where do you see all this going? It sounds like the patent process, even what it takes to become properly educated, or in your case, what you spend your time and energy on is teaching people how to do this, and your law firm helping people do the correct thing legally. Where do you see all this going? Is it getting more complicated, or will there be some kind of online process where you can go in and get this done, say, in a couple of days?
Anyone who thinks they can do anything by themselves is sorely mistaken. Nobody does anything by themselves.
Excellent advice. Yeah, the day of the one-horse Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla world is gone.
Even Edison didn't do anything by himself. He stole his work from all the people he paid. Yeah. I mean, look at the story.
In New Jersey, he had hundreds of people working on his estate there. It was amazing.
Sure, he may have been a really smart individual, but I would, there are stories about him putting his name on ideas that weren't his.
Exactly. And I've read just about every piece of literature on Nikola Tesla. That's an interesting story as well. And now, as of today, the story's so distorted that the name is like an icon rather than a historical document. What advice would you give to a new inventor? What's the one thing that you see that you'd like to see them do first?
I wish people would be less afraid to talk to an attorney.
Excellent.
And also more willing to understand that they don't know everything. A little bit of humility goes a long way.
Yes.
On the other hand, you do need drive and stick-to-itiveness, which sort of you have to there's a fine line between hubris,
yes, and idiocy.
I don't know where that sweet spot is.
Yeah.
I see many people with that sweet spot. I mean, Karen Respecki with the recap mason jar, she has that.
Yes, what an outstanding.
Her entire family, they all have that hard work, drive, and a little bit of humility, and ready to ask for help.
Well, with all this, Jonathan De Silva, thank you for taking this half hour and spending it with us here. And we're definitely going to ask you to come back on a more specific topic. So let me thank you for being a guest today on WQLN.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you.